Welcome to The State of Us. Real people with honest opinions and the future of responsible media. Here's your host, Justin T. Weller.
Your employer may know a lot more about you than you think. The tone of your voice in a meeting, how often you're away from your desk, how quickly you respond to emails, where you roam in the office, what's on your computer screen. To be an employee of a large company in the U.S. now often means becoming a workforce data generator. Employers are parsing those interactions to learn who is influential, which teams are most productive, and who is a flight risk. All of that from the Wall Street Journal, the Saturday-Sunday edition, July 20th through the 21st. But it may not all be bad news. Doesn't sound very cheery. You should care, obviously, because this is often how we see precedents set for smaller employers as well. The big companies start to do something, they find that it's effective, and if it's affordable, hey, if you're a small business, maybe you implement it too. So this is something that has the potential to affect anybody in the workforce and those outside of the workforce, because guess what? If you're a family member of somebody at one of those institutions, certainly possible that you might get caught up unknowingly in that data train. But of course, we couldn't begin a conversation on data, privacy, big tech without
your friendly redneck liberal, Lance Jackson.
I'll take the positive spin on this.
Yeah?
Yeah. So instead of the boss just liking you or disliking you and giving you a promotion or a raise, now they can actually point things out and say, gee, this is the person who's working hardest. So you take out the bias and the dress and the fact that your coworker smiles at the boss while you just walk in and do your job. Maybe you get noticed for just coming in and doing your job and not have to play the political game to get ahead in the workplace.
Oh, so it could just be based on your productivity.
On your productivity.
On the numbers.
Right. So that could be a good thing, right?
Okay. So we are going to
threw a curveball there. Didn't I, huh? You didn't. Well, wasn't the answer you're expecting from me about the boss looking over your shoulder?
Yes. We are going to look at a couple different perspectives today. We've got Lance, the retired individual, right? So sort of out of the workforce for the most part. You've got myself, the owner of a small business, part of the workforce. And today we've got Caleb Spinner, our associate producer.
Yay. The employee of your small business.
Yes, who's going to be guesting from the perspective of somebody kind of entering the workforce, looking at those potential career choices and potential employers and making some of those decisions. And so we've got Caleb here at the table with us and our other associate producer, Bradley, in the control room. So we've got a full lineup today, Lance. What do you think?
Pretty full.
A lot of voices.
Pretty full.
It's a full house today.
It is. It's kind of young.
It's kind of young. We're dragging that age down.
It is.
That
was a show.
You
Full House.
Yeah.
With little kids.
I know.
That was on Nick at Night.
I've seen it.
I knew it.
I'm not. Anyway.
Lance is the old guy. I just wondered.
Lance is John Stamos.
I wish.
Lance wouldn't have nearly the headache that he's got today if he was in that position. So we are referencing the Wall Street Journal article today. And it starts out we get a little more data. 2,000 employers are using Terramind software, which can capture workers' keystrokes in real time. So we're talking here, Lance, about literally what I'm typing and doing second by second on my device can be tracked. So there's over 2,000 employers in the U.S. using that type of software today.
No more watching the NCAA tournament in March, huh?
No.
They're going to know what you're
they're going to know.
Okay.
22% of companies surveyed say they collect data on the movements of employees. So what do we mean here? Part of what the article explains is this is particularly popular in the healthcare field right now, but is growing in other areas where they're tracking nurses' movements on the floor, what they're doing at every second. So this also is used to monitor hand washing techniques, for example. Are you, pulling a quick one because you think nobody's watching, or are you doing the full thorough hand washing that you've been trained to do? So that's a small example, but then in other workplaces, in a more corporate setting, They might be tracking at ESPN, for example, what desks Caleb is spending his time at. Who is he talking to the most? And how productive are those groups? In other words, is this little chit chat he's doing, is this making him a better employee, or is it just idle talk? And if it's idle talk, then maybe we got to curb that, get rid of that friend group, break it up, transfer him to some different departments. If it's a good friend group and it's bolstering productivity, then we'll do things to be lenient with it, right? Allow that small talk.
Well, at that job, at least, I'd probably be paid to watch the March Madness tournament.
That's right. Probably.
At that one, at least, probably. Depending on what department and friend group I have.
Or, see, the other way this goes, though, is because of the type of job, you might not be paid to watch it. It might just be expected that you do it in your off time.
Either way, I get to watch it.
That's right.
Either way.
But the question then becomes, how much time are you putting in for things that are expected for work, the alleged or the much desired quote unquote work-life balance? What is that balance looking like? Microsoft Corp, the world's now most valuable company as of a few days ago, tallies data on the frequency of chats, emails, and meetings between its staff and clients using its own Office 365 services to measure employee productivity. Tracking the email, chats, and calendar appointments can paint a picture of how employees spend an average of 20 hours of their work time each week, says a general manager at Microsoft who focuses on workplace analytics. The company only allows managers to look at groups of 5 or more workers. This one's key because part of what the article talks about here is the way that different companies do things, okay? So there is a difference between the companies just watching Caleb individually or the companies watching the State of Us team as it prepares for things. So is it looking at the data aggregated? Is it looking at it on an individual basis? Earlier this year, Microsoft sales team members received personalized dashboards that show how they spend their time. Insights that managers cannot see. So in other words, the managers can see how the group is doing. They can't see how an individual is doing, but the individual can see just how they are doing and not their group. The thinking here being a personal accountability at the individual level and a team accountability at the manager level. Novel concept, right, Lance? So that's one way that it's being put into place. Okay. But advocates of using surveillance technology in the workplace say that the insights allow companies to better allocate resources, spot problems earlier, and suss out high performers. Critics warn the proliferation of these tools may not be nuanced enough to result in fair, equitable judgments. So, skeptic Lance, what do you think?
Well, I've always been a big proponent that if you're at work, you're supposed to be working. I mean, I don't like the government looking in on my private life. I don't like them to be able to, for different things to follow me when I'm on my own time. But I don't necessarily have a problem with catching people goofing off or not working when they're getting paid to work. I mean, I'm less skeptical and have less problems with that than I do on the private side. So it's kind of that's where I draw my line. So I think this is maybe, and like I said, I think it's a good use because then you don't have to be the boss's pet. If they can actually take out the bias and look at the numbers and what you're producing, then you are rewarded because you're the one doing the work. You're not the one who's making the boss laugh with a new joke or bringing them lunch every day or a donut and you get ahead in the company for doing those kinds of things. They're actually judging you on your production at work and your team's production at work. So I don't have as much as a problem with this as I do, other kinds of spying on us.
I agree with Lance. If this was stuff that they were using to spy on me at home or when I've clocked out, then there'd be a problem. But when I'm at work, I'm expected to be doing my job. They should know that I'm doing my job. This sounds like a good idea. Exactly what Lance said. So people can't kiss up to management and get further for doing nothing or for buying the occasional donut or meal or complimenting their hair when they come in. As long as this type of software does not follow me home, I'm fine with it.
So, and this is where it gets more interesting and may cause Lance some more distress, is some of this software, right? The company says, well, you put this on your phone and it lets us track your productivity.
No.
But Lance, what about when you go out to lunch?
Yep.
And now we know where you ate lunch.
Yep.
Because we like to know if our employees go all to eat at the same place, because it gives us an idea of who's working together closely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then what if we monitor your email usage when you're at home, and maybe the websites that you choose to browse? Gives us an idea of what your interests are. And that might give us a better idea of how to theme company parties, right? It's harmless. It can't extend down the slippery slope of following you home, or if it does, it's certainly not malicious.
You don't have to be sarcastic about it.
And now when Caleb spends time, looking up the techniques of, I don't know, something, anything that isn't work-related, how to fix your lawnmower, everybody knows that Caleb is no good at fixing a lawnmower and had to YouTube 10 videos on it and read a couple help articles because, your boss all of a sudden has access to that data.
Man, wouldn't that be embarrassing if you worked for Microsoft or something and you Googled it and you searched for a tech question? Like, how do I start a Microsoft PowerPoint or something like that?
Yeah.
And then the company gets to see wait a minute, what? Why is he Googling to do that? He works for the company. Why doesn't he know how to do that?
So you're working at ESPN, you run across a certain type of stat that somebody discusses someday, or a certain reference to a historical player, and you feel like a buffoon because you didn't know it, and then you go home and you look it up.
I have to Google who Michael Jordan was, or what the stat PPG means. And yeah, that'd be embarrassing.
Right. But now your boss knows this and thinks you're maybe less informed about maybe he shouldn't pay you as much as he does, because maybe you don't know as much as you should.
And then maybe the question of whether or not I'm a good asset for the company comes into his head. And then all of a sudden I'm out of a job.
So the question becomes, because it seems pretty cut and dry, right? Don't take it home with you, and it's that simple. One of the pieces of advice that we're going to look at today on how to keep your life private is to have separate devices. In other words, devices dedicated.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah?
I didn't even read all the article. Right. If they provide me with a work phone, then okay, that's fine. And if I'm silly enough, I won't use the dumb word, if I'm silly enough to use my work phone for private things, then they can find out about me. But if I have my work phone and I do all my work stuff on my work phone, then if I have a private phone, if I have one for my own personal use, then they can't track it. Right? I mean, that's how you beat that game.
As long as you don't make the mistake. And this is where the practicality, I think, of what we're talking about is important. How many companies actually provide somebody with a phone and actually provide them with a work computer? Especially in small businesses, it's very common, and even at large ones, for you to bring your own device, right? To use your own technology at work. And often, I'll use an example here at TrueChat. Caleb got his company email set up when he came in and had to log into it for the first time on his phone, on his personal phone and his personal laptop. In both cases, upon setting up the account, there was a notification that tells him, your organization will now enforce certain privacy policies onto your computer and to your phone. Do you accept, and it regulates, how data is handled. Not necessarily tracking data outside of the email account, but it does regulate, in other words, what types of things you're allowed to share via company email.
Not necessarily tracking.
Right.
I like that. Not necessarily, but it could be tracking.
Technically, we're not spying.
In our case, it doesn't, but that is a way where companies could have that in. Again, it's not to say they're doing anything illegal, because part of what the article highlights is they've got broad latitude here. It's kind of, you signed up to work for them, and if you don't like it, you can leave, sort of thing. And I think this is less a question of, should it be legal as much as it is, where should we draw the line as workers with
but it's like when I taught at school, we had a classroom computer, and, very quickly we made sure everybody understood that whatever sites you go on your school computer, the school has access to that. Big Brother is watching. We did, and we very quickly got people to stop sending union related emails on school computers. Hey, the boss can read those, you people. Oh, duh. And so now they all go to your home computer. It's like, how do they know I was shopping during my third period English class? How do they know I was shopping for clothes? Why am I getting called down into the office? Well, were you on your school computer buying clothes during third period? Yeah. Well, okay. Well, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be teaching during that period. You have an assigned duty or assigned class that period. So I don't know. I really don't have a problem with that because that's what you're supposed to do. Now, with what you're describing though, is that they're asking for permission to follow me at home, even though I've left the workplace,
or on your lunch break,
or my lunch break,
or on your commute to work.
Not kosher, dude. And I guess then I'd have to go look for another job. And I can say that because I'm not, I don't necessarily have to have a job.
Right.
So I can say that, but
so it could be a make or break for you.
That would be a tough conundrum. Yes, it would be. Yeah. If I had two options and one said that they weren't going to follow me at lunch and on my way home and on my commute, and the other one said, yeah, we have the capabilities to do that, I would take the one that didn't do that. Well,
let's lay it out though in a slightly more personal scenario. Okay. For Lance.
How can you get even more personal than that? You're going to follow me around 24/7 or you only follow me around at work?
Well, let's just say,
am I going to get a report every week on what I did?
You
went to the restroom 42 times.
You have an ideal job offer. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
From school A. Okay. And sounds like everything you want. They've met pretty much every demand that you've asked for. But so it's the ideal job, right? Okay. Except for you gotta use this app that tracks you at work, tracks your commute, lunch break.
Was this when I needed to have a paying job?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Now you have this other job at an institution. We'll just say like Urbana City Schools. Maybe not exactly what you'd like in the way of a job, but it pays more than this other job, about 10% more, we'll say.
Well, that never happened.
But there's no tracking. Now what do you do? So you got job that's not ideal. That's not exactly what you want.
It pays more?
There's no tracking.
Yeah, we didn't have to pay me more.
Pays 10% more.
You could say it pays 10% less.
Okay.
And I'd still take the non-tracking job.
Really?
Yes.
So even in your real life scenario that's going on right now, you'd still take the non-tracking job over the one that...
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I did that.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure.
People ask me, why are you teaching in Urbana? You could go 30 minutes away and make 25% more money doing the exact same thing. I've already done that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, not for the tracking, but for me, that's such a important personal issue that you don't have to offer me more for the bad job to say, I'll take less at the bad job than to go to the good job for somebody to have the capabilities of watching me in my private life.
Okay.
On my personal time.
We're going to talk to Bradley and Caleb about this one too, make it personal for them. But before we do that, Lance.
Yes.
Do you think Caleb should tell us what we're trying to do here today?
Oh man, then I don't get to read the...
But it's in his contract.
Yeah, but I can defer.
Ah, okay.
That's subsection C. Yeah, I think Caleb should do
I think it's more like section G, but...
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was subsection
I was going to say, I've heard
C.
there's a lot of subsections on this contract.
It's a hefty thing.
So yes, Caleb should.
What are we doing, Caleb?
Well, we at TrueChat try to educate people by providing honest, open, and respectful conversation.
Lance.
Yes.
If people don't think we're in keeping with that mission, what do they do?
Well, Caleb said one time that they should call us.
Yeah?
Did he ever give that landline number out?
I don't know. What's that number, Caleb?
That's an 844-828.
No.
2434?
No, 878-2428. 844-878-2428. You can call us if you really want to.
Yes, that was another thing I had to sign up for was Ring Central when I came here.
We are a technical company. We have some technology here.
Okay.
So you can email us at TrueChat and get a hold of the ethics department.
Yep.
And you can voice your concerns with what's going on. It will be investigated and it will be dealt with appropriately. So,
and that email is ethics@truechat.org.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay. Before we continue, we're going to look at some more specifics here, but we're going to take a quick moment to hear from one of our sponsors. Welcome back. We're looking at how you're not fooling anyone. 3 hours of work a day, are you kidding? Your employer knows now. Be on the lookout. Caleb, couple job offers come down the pike. So this is a few years from now, right? Graduated college. You've thrown TrueChat aside. Bah. And it's time for the big leagues, right? So Fox Sports comes around and says, Caleb, here is a 6-figure contract, your own day part, we'll say 4 p.m. hour, 4 to 5. And you're going to cover, what's ever hot right now, what's ever going on. It's pretty much your show. We'll give you a production team. They'll help you out.
So just like I do here. Ish.
Sort of.
Cool.
Except, at a higher level.
And it's probably not called True Sports anymore.
And it's probably not, no, it's not called True Sports.
Probably.
It's on TV. You're going to be in a nice suit. Get that camera face on.
I love my suits.
Okay. So it sounds fantastic, but tracking all the time. You're going to download this nice app on your phone. We're going to get a great idea of who Caleb is. Follow him at home. Follow him while he's at work, while he's at lunch, on his way to work, on his way home. We're going to learn everything we can because we're ESPN and the mouse likes to know.
We're Fox Sports.
Or we're Fox. Right. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll throw that way. So Fox, right? Because that is what I started with, I guess. So we'll stick with Fox. I guess it doesn't matter. You like Fox better probably though, don't you?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So Fox. Then you have different job offer from a small ESPN affiliate in North Dakota. I don't even know if there's an ESPN. I'm sure there probably is, but ESPN affiliate in North Dakota. Okay. And it pays, we'll say $50,000 a year. And you'll have one associate producer who produces a few other shows, but will help you out about an hour before the show will get ready. No tracking whatsoever. You completely structure your own content every day. You can talk about anything. Doesn't even have to be sports. But it's all yours and your prime time. You're on the evening drive home, and they'll even give you the morning. It's your choice. You get the morning or the drive home, either one. So you have the most listeners of this ESPN affiliate.
This sounds like a trap because the second one sounds like what I do here. And this sounds like a trap.
The second one sounds...
This sounds like a trap. I get to do whatever content I want. It's a smaller place in the middle of nowhere. It kind of sounds like this.
So what do you think? What are we doing?
I take the first one and then I use part of that 6-figure paycheck to get a second phone.
You do that. You lose your job.
No, I can install the mandatory app they want me to have. It's just on a different phone.
You need...
Put in there that he's not allowed to have a personal phone.
Okay. Now what? You can't do your cop-out scenario that you were for. You got to have a phone and you got to have a computer. They provide you the computer and the phone, but you're not allowed to have a separate one. Like it's got to be.
And that's just part of the job requirement.
Yeah.
That's just what they say.
They have to be able to reach you anytime, day or night. Phone is always on and you have to be ready at the drop of a hat.
I think I still take it.
Okay.
I think I still take it.
So it's not as important as he made it out to be before.
Because I've got nothing to hide. I'm not a flight risk. I'm not on the terrorist watch list. I'm not an FBI most wanted list member.
Where you're spending your evenings? That's company knowledge.
On my couch in front of my Xbox.
Okay. All
Binging
right.
Stranger Things.
That's
what I do.
Bradley's looking like a no.
That would never change.
Looking like a no.
Most likely not. Probably.
So he's going to be single, watching TV by himself for his entire life.
You're right. They won't have a lot to look at. So I guess he won't have anything to worry about.
Or at least fool them by making it look like my personal life is not interesting.
Oh,
so they won't follow me.
Well, now that you've said that on a recorded podcast, they can find with their artificial intelligence. Now they'll know. So Bradley?
Yes.
Somebody wants to pay you, okay, north of a high 6-figure job in New York to paint. Okay. Full time. You'll make, I don't know, $750,000 for 10 hours a week of your time for painting. And you paint whatever you want. Okay?
Okay.
It's whatever. You just got to put in 10 hours painting every week. Whatever you want, we take whatever you get done. It'll be great. Okay?
All right.
That's the job. On the other hand, though,
That's the tracking one, right?
right. Oh, yeah. And by the way, they're going to give you a phone. You got to be ready at the drop of a hat, and they're going to track everything you do. Okay?
Okay.
So you have to work 10 hours, but, and you're getting paid $750,000 and you're getting paid to paint.
Yeah. Seems pretty, seems like a nice lifestyle I have set up there besides the tracking part, but.
On the other hand, we've got this job, right? And you're going to work. Remind me again, what are you majoring in? Remind our listeners. They don't know, actually.
Biology on a pre-med track.
Okay. So you're going to work the night shift at a clinic, a free clinic in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to make $80,000. But there's no tracking.
No tracking.
No tracking. Always the night shift for the rest of your life.
So with
and always at the free clinic. So you're going to get,
yeah.
You're
The
going to
free
get
clinic money.
right. You're going to get the free clinic patients. So in the middle of the night, which, yeah.
So with the tracking, can you go over what they're tracking again when I go home?
Anything and everything.
Everything.
You're not fully aware of what you just know that it's kind of there's no limits.
It's 1984. You read the book?
No.
Okay. 1984, meaning they have total access. There is no such thing as privacy. Yep. They know what you're saying, what you're watching, who you're with.
And they may be using it, they may not, but they have access to it.
But they have the ability to do that.
You don't know if it's being used.
You lose all privacy in your private life.
At the point, if I'm making $750,000 and I'm painting for a living, I don't care. That's the
okay.
Yep. There you go.
At that point in my life, it's like, what do I care at all? If I'm painting, what's my boss going to say about my paintings? Who is my boss in this circumstance? So that's my kind of.
Yeah, is the boss the kind of person that would want to learn everything about you, or is it just kind of we got to do this?
Doesn't matter, guys. The fact that they can is wrong and scary. You're turning over your entire life to be run by someone that you cannot trust. That's a scary thought to give up.
Why can't you trust them,
Lance? For any amount of money? Because you can't trust any other humans. Do you not study history? Humans are not a trustworthy species.
What about computers?
Even less.
You ask the tech guy what
Even
he
less
thinks about the computers.
Does nobody here read sci-fi and then compare it to what's really happening in society? These sci-fi writers wrote this stuff up to 100 years ago.
Fahrenheit 451.
And it's all coming true. Yes. The little TV screens that talk to you when you're standing pumping your gas or at the checkout counter, that's all written in sci-fi before it could happen. And who's to say the prophecy is real? Who's to say that the government's not behind that, watching what you're doing? And they know who's flipping off the screen and who's actually going in and buying that. And it's mind control. And they're taking down who's flipping off the screens, and eventually, you just suddenly disappear because you're not somebody that the government can control.
I'm going to throw something else out for you guys.
You guys really think the government doesn't want to control you?
Well, if they pay me enough to control me,
then it's all right.
Oh, that's another form of control.
If you have
exactly with their salary.
Exactly, right? I mean, if I give you enough things, then you do whatever I want to do.
I guess then
that's a Nazi Germany type thing.
Then it's just the trust. I have to trust that my boss will use this app for what it's meant to do, for what the corporate purpose of it is to do, and will not just say,
and you believe in the human spirit enough that you're willing to do that?
I got to at least trust them first. If I don't trust them, then maybe it's a different story. But if I trust my boss and I trust my coworkers,
how do you make that decision though? So you've been at a job a while, right? And they go to institute this, and it's like, I have a good relationship with my boss. I'm not worried about the data being misused. So again, whether you agree with it or not, you've made this decision. But what about when you're getting hired? I mean, you can't, maybe you can, maybe you take the approach, right, of trust until you have a reason not to trust.
Well, I use my gut feeling. Do I feel like you're a trustworthy person? When I'm getting hired,
You're gonna give Lance a heart attack. You're gonna give Lance a
like if it's somebody like you who's like, oh, by the way, we're gonna put this app on here. No problem, because I trust Justin, I trust Lance, I trust these guys. That's who I trust, and
that's your first
I believe
mistake.
they're good people. Yeah, there's the first mistake. But if it's some guy that just got out of prison for selling secrets and is a really shady dude and is losing his hair and is really unkept, yeah, my gut feeling is going to say not to trust this guy and not to take this job.
I doubt that that's probably going to be somebody in a management position
I do
at
too.
Fox Sports.
I do too,
maybe.
but like
Maybe.
if I get that vibe from them.
So here's I'm just going to throw this out because we talked about this has all been kind of off of the pretext of at a job, right, where they track what you're doing during work time, which the three of you have all given input on yet, which I haven't shared. My alternative to that is I'm not opposed to it, Lance, because we've talked about, right? I mean, you're there to do work. Like you're getting paid to do work. But I spent, and so did Camden a while back when we were still in Cincinnati, several months doing some research on the real capacity of people to be productive, right? What is the time allotment per day where people can where you can get your money's worth, right? Not where they can do something that maybe has value, but where you're actually getting maximum productivity from them. And
I know this.
What were they?
I don't know what your study
I'm interested.
was.
And generally it's about 3 to 4 hours. And we're not talking about peak. We're talking about, 80% or so productivity of what a person's capable of. I mean, not everybody, because not everybody's at the same level. What Caleb can do versus what Bradley can do in 3 or 4 hours isn't the same given what the task is, but they can do what they're capable of doing, at 80% quality for about that long before the rest of what they're going to do starts to drastically drop off. So they might still be petering away, right? Doing some work. But the way all this was figured out, Lance, is they gave people tasks. Okay. So they gave a group of people these different projects and they said, here's the timeline to do it. Right. And in the one case, they tracked everybody every step of the way. Right. And in the other case, there was no tracking and they just told them, you have to have it done by this time and you do whatever you want, and you get it done by this time. Both groups had about the same percentage completion in terms of the total amount of people, okay, that completed the project. In terms of quality, there was only a marginal improvement in the quality of the group that was being tracked every step of the way. In other words, even though the other group wasn't being tracked, the total value of what was done was marginally, within a margin of a few percentage points, just as good as those that were being tracked full time. So this all leads back to the belief that as an employer, I don't want to hire people that I have to watch all the time.
I want to be able to trust that they're doing the right thing when you ask.
I want to hire people, give them a project, and if the project gets done to my satisfaction in a time that I know is reasonable to get it done, fine. And if they have to take a few breaks here and there and goof off because it keeps, their morale high, okay. But not everybody has that approach. In other words, I don't want to pay Caleb to not get the project done. But if I say, here's the project, here's when it needs to be done by, and this is what's expected, and you deliver the results that I'm after, I'm much more interested in the results, not in necessarily how you got to them.
You don't pay me to get the project done.
No. I mean, just generally speaking.
Well, just so you are aware, I totally agree with you. I answered the question on the premise of if I work for somebody like that, I'm okay with it at the workplace.
Right.
But if I was in charge of someone or in a group of people,
the approach that you would take,
I would be in your management style, not collecting data. I would not use this. I was just answering in the
Gotcha.
parameter that if somebody said that to me, I wouldn't mind somebody watching me at work because I know that I give them a full day's work for a full day's pay. But I would not do this if I had a company, because I wouldn't give, and this may be hard to believe, but I can compartmentalize a friendship versus work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I may really like Caleb, and Bradley and I don't have as much in common, so I don't really like him, but I can be a fair judge that Bradley gets a lot more work done than Caleb does. So when it comes time for a raise or a promotion, Bradley's getting it.
Right.
Because
though you like Caleb
even
better.
though personally I like hanging out with Caleb better, Bradley's going to get the raise, even though I like Bradley better too, as well as in the real case. But,
Okay.
but the scenario, is that, Caleb and I are good buddies, but Bradley's a better worker in a work setting. I would give Bradley the raise as the boss. I would give Bradley the raise in the promotion, even though Caleb's my best friend. So,
Aww.
But not everybody
does that. No, I've seen it in too many cases where if you suck up to the boss, you get stuff, and the people who are actually doing the work get the shaft. And that's where this would be for people who have that management style. This would be a better way than what you and I would do.
There's also this opportunity that I think is important to highlight because the article talks about this some. It is allowing companies to discover people who are holding everything together that nobody is aware is holding everything together. This is especially at big companies, somebody who's been there 30 years, nobody really knows exactly what they do, and they leave one day, and then there's all these problems that start happening because it's not that they didn't know what they did, like they knew what their title was, they understood that they were doing work, but they didn't look at them as important, right? Part of one of the upsides is it is giving insight to managers on, the strong links that you aren't aware of. Who actually is your most valuable people? Who, again, you don't see from the outside, but once they're gone, it's like, oh my gosh, we got all these problems now. Nobody knows how to do this thing, and we got this client that's mad, and there's this project that's not getting done now, and all this terrible stuff. So there is some benefits in that too. And like Lance said, you remove the bias. I can see why, especially in large companies, it's a practical, more fair solution. A little bit like what Lance and I talked about with the Walmart thing and the training and assessment of employees for leadership potential. While sure, there are inherently built-in biases, at the same time, you're removing the individual circumstances that create bias on a more frequent basis, on a more inconsistent basis, right? At least the biases that are built into these programs are consistent. And if you can train, for example, your managers who are using the data to be aware of the built-in biases because they're consistent biases. But when you don't have processes in place that are the same, that's where you get inconsistent bias, which is much harder to manage and root out. So, I don't know. I think at the small company level, my guess is it's a while before this takes hold because there's probably a lot of people, I would think, Lance, that side with the line of thinking that you and I do, that it's just not something that they're going to pay for because it's like, I know if I'm happy with my people or not because I know them all. But at the same time, if you're the CEO of Microsoft, it's just not practical. You can't know everybody, Right. Even if you want to, you can't because you have hundreds of thousands of employees. It's not feasible. So you have to think about how can we do the best, worst job of monitoring the job that people are doing for us in some kind of consistent way. So as always, we'll leave it up to you, our listeners, to decide. You can let us know at TrueChat.org. You can also check out thestateofus.org, thestateofus.org. We are linking articles there now, so you've got access to the important stuff that we're discussing on the show. So if you want to check it out for yourself, there's a lot of different things for this one. And Lance, we've challenged people to tune in, and they can do that now at thestateofus.org, right?
Yes, they can.
They can do that.
It's a new feature here.
But we also want to share with people, right, what ways they can tune in, and what are those?
Well, you've got Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else fine podcasts are found.
And Caleb, you're bringing us a bunch of new listeners, right?
I am.
You're getting them
actually.
signed
I'm
up.
up to 23.
Well, we'll have to look into the
We'll have to
metrics
log 'em.
and see if those are actually coming through. Because maybe you're just
Yes,
flubbing.
we will. Maybe they listened to
Maybe we'll learn that we
maybe
can't
they listened
trust
to
Caleb.
3 minutes of one and then said, "Oh yeah, I listened to your show, Caleb. Or I listened to the show that you're on, Caleb."
It's all a matter of interpretation, right? All a matter of interpretation. They might not be lying. They might not think they're lying, but then you hear it and you think they're lying. So
Fair.
up to you all to decide. Thank you, Caleb, for sharing your thoughts with us today.
No problem.
Special big warm thank you to Bradley, right, Lance?
Mm-hmm. Always.
Little
Way to go, Brad.
round of applause.
Yep.
for
You're too kind.
Way to go, Bradley. It's not Brad.
poor
It isn't
Caleb.
Brad. It's Bradley. That's right.
Poor Caleb. Caleb did get to sit at the table today, so I
Yeah,
know,
Caleb got the comfortable table position.
and he had his smart water, and
Yeah.
he was ready. So he definitely
We
got.
found him napkins because he's a messy eater.
Well, because Justin doesn't like going to Walmart and getting paper towels for the studio.
Yes,
That's why.
It's not in your contract, dude. You don't get paper towels.
that's right. You're not stocked with paper.
I'm
towels.
finding I have to put a whole bunch of stuff in this contract.
Yeah, hey, put it in writing.
Next time it comes time for me to re-up, we're going to have some demands here.
we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Everybody, stay tuned in for
Yeah.
the continuing saga of the Lance and Caleb contract. For the State of Us on TrueChat in Urbana, I'm Justin T. Weller.
I'm Lance Jackson.
I'm Caleb Spinner.
And I'm Bradley Butch.
Thank you all very much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Be the change.